Well, welcome again this morning. Thank you all for coming out on a lovely but chilly day. What I want to talk about this morning, I want to start with the reading here. This is a selection from the verses on the perfection of wisdom. Prajna Paramita Ratna Guna Samcharya Gata, the verse form of the sutra on the perfection of wisdom in 8,000 lines. This is kind of a big sister sutra to the Heart Sutra that we chanted here earlier. It's in kind of the same family of texts. This is from the translation by Edward Conze, and he labels this section the basic teaching. So this is kind of the fundamental part of this text. So if you would please put your hands together and Hapchang. No wisdom can we get hold of, no highest perfection, no bodhisattva, no thought of enlightenment either. When told of this, if not bewildered and in no way anxious, a bodhisattva courses in the well-gone's wisdom. In form and feeling, will, perception, and awareness, nowhere in them they find a place to rest on. Without a home they wander, dharmas never hold them, nor do they grasp at them. The jina's bodhi they are bound to gain. The wanderer Shrenika in his gnosis of truth could find no basis, though the skandhas had not been undone. Just so the bodhisattva, when he comprehends the dharmas as he should, does not retire into blessed rest. In wisdom then he dwells. What is this wisdom? Whose and whence, he queries. And then he finds that all these dharmas are entirely empty. Uncowed and fearless in the face of that discovery, not far from Bodhi is that Bodhi being then, to course in the skandhas, in form, in feeling, in perception, will, and so on, and fail to consider them wisely, or to imagine these skandhas as being empty, means to course in the sign, the track of non-production ignored. But when he does not course in form and feeling or perception and will or consciousness, but wanders without home, remaining unaware of coursing firm in wisdom, his thoughts of non-production, then the best of all the calming trances cleaves to him. Through that, the bodhisattva now dwells tranquil in himself, his future Buddhahood assured by antecedent Buddhas. Whether absorbed in trance or whether outside it, he minds not. For of things as they are, he knows the essential origin, original nature. Coursing thus, he courses in the wisdom of the Sagatas, and yet he does not apprehend the dharmas in which he courses. This coursing he wisely knows as a no-coursing. That is his practice of wisdom, the highest perfection. What exists not, that non-existent the foolish imagine. Non-existence as well as existence, they fashion as dharmic facts. Existence and non-existent are both not real. A bodhisattva goes forth when wisely he knows this. If he knows the five skandhas as like an illusion, but makes not illusion one thing and the skandhas another, if freed from the notion of multiple things he courses in peace, then that is his practice of wisdom, the highest perfection. Those with good teachers as well as deep insight cannot be frightened on hearing the mother's deep tenets. But those with bad teachers who can be misled by others are ruined thereby as an unbaked pot when in contact with moisture. Thank you. These are the words of a tradition. What I want to talk about this morning is disillusionment. Before I started working on this talk, I kind of had the impression, it seemed to me, that disillusioned is a word that people seem to be using a lot more recently. So let's see if that's actually true. To make a little technological reference, Google has this interesting tool called the Books Ngram Viewer. What this thing allows you to do is there's this huge catalog of published books that Google has in its repertoire, whether it's legal or not, I don't know. But and what you can do is you can search for a word, and then what it will do, it will look through this huge collection of books for usages of that word, and it'll then make a kind of a timeline graph to show you how frequently that word has been used in all of these books. So what I did was I limited the search to just United States English books, and I had it search for disillusionment. And the line that it gave me was really interesting. Apparently, this is a word that nobody really used before about 1880, because the line's basically flat before about 1880. And then it slowly goes up from there gradually until about World War II. It peaks up around World War II, and then it drops off for a while. And it stays pretty low through the 50s, and then kind of starts going back up in the 60s. It hits another peak around 1970 and drops off again for a while through the 70s and 80s. It bottoms out in about 1994. And then it starts going up again after that, and it hits the highest ever peak just like last year. So apparently, people really are talking about disillusionment more than they ever have before. When I started looking up in dictionaries definitions of disillusion and disillusionment, I noticed something interesting in the dictionary definitions. Most dictionaries define these words in a way that really stresses the idea of a negative emotional response being part of the state of being disillusioned or disillusionment, using words like disappoint, dissatisfaction, disgruntled, frustrated. That one breaks the pattern. I know. One dictionary I looked at was the online version of the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. It defined disillusion as, in part, it defined it as the condition of being dissatisfied or defeated in expectation or hope. Defeated in hope. That's bleak. It makes me think about how I read that, and the first thing I thought of was what Dante has in the Inferno on the gate above the entrance to hell. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here. But then I scrolled down a little further on that page on Merriam-Webster's website, and they have kids' versions of definitions. And the kids' definition for disillusion was simply this: to free from mistaken beliefs or foolish hope. Now, I expect it occurred to you right away, those don't feel the same. Those two definitions don't seem to be the same. There's a big difference between those things. There's a big difference between being defeated in hope and being free from foolish hope, right? Merriam-Webster's presumably grown-up definition, the bleak and jaded one, does not strike me as being compatible with Buddhism at all. But that kid's definition, that to me, that's describing the goals of the Buddha Dharma to a T, right? Through our practice and study, what we strive to do is overcome ignorance. Or in other words, to free ourselves from mistaken beliefs. The Buddha might prefer to say mistaken views. From foolish hopes. In other words, from self-deception, from delusion, from non-productive fantasies. I've mentioned in previous times that I've been here. For those who, I probably should have said earlier who I'm the student of Heido Im's. I'm the Dharma teacher for the Belmont Zen Center, which is about 5 hours away in Ohio, down near Wheeling, West Virginia. So I get up here whenever I can. And I've mentioned in previous visits up here during Dharma talks that on my cell phone, I have in the notes, I have this running tally of ideas for Dharma talks. And I'm constantly adding things and then taking things off and got this list. And this one's been on my list for a long time because the inspiration for this came from a book. I read a book several years ago now. So the inspiration from this talk comes from the very last chapter on Prajna Paramita, the perfection of wisdom, in a book called The Six Perfections, Buddhism and the Cultivation of Character, which was written by a guy named Dale Wright. And I want to quote from that book now. He wrote, "Wisdom is the ability to face the truth of not," no, let me start that over again. "Wisdom is the ability to face the truth and not be unnerved or frightened. It is the capacity to be disillusioned but not disheartened." I'm going to read that sentence again. It is the capacity to be disillusioned but not disheartened. Wisdom means setting aside illusions about oneself and the world and being strengthened by that encounter with the truth. One way to say this is that bodhisattvas, those who seek wisdom and open transformation throughout their lives, can be distinguished in terms of how much truth they can bear, how many illusions of comfort and security they are willing or able to set aside. Now, there's no question that being disillusioned, becoming disillusioned can be upsetting. It's disturbing. It's maybe even a little bit traumatic. It involves having to admit to ourselves, well, if nothing else, that we were wrong about something. Nobody likes that, right? That previously we're in a state of being illusioned or delusioned. I mean, if you think about it, disillusioned means to come out of being illusioned. You have to be illusioned in order to be disillusioned. Right? You're illusioned first to be disillusioned. You have to be operating under an illusion. Being disillusioned means we have to revise our worldview. Maybe we have to change our view of some other person, or maybe of people in general, or maybe of ourselves. Right? It's a challenging thing to do. It's hard. It can throw our perceptions out of kilter. It can throw us all out of balance. No one enjoys being disillusioned. No one would want to stay in that state of being disillusioned for a very long time. But that's kind of the point, right? That's the point of it. Disillusionment is like thirst or hunger. We're not supposed to stay that way for a long time. It's motivational. It makes us want to do something about it. Nobody enjoys being thirsty and hungry. When we feel thirsty and hungry, we feel motivated to do something about it, to get ourselves back into balance. So when we're disillusioned, it's a similar deal. Disillusionment is an uncomfortable but necessary step in the process of understanding the truth. It's a state that we're intended to pass through and come out the other side of and move on from there. It's a warning sign that something isn't working in our minds, that we need to retool our understanding of how the world works. We can try to cling to an ineffective worldview, and as a result of that, we might stay in that state of vertigo and confusion, or we can go through that short-term discomfort to literally change our mind, right? Abandon ineffective views. It's a little bit like I'm a research psychologist, so I have to think about it in terms of science. It's a little like being a scientist who realizes that her theory is doing a bad job of explaining the research data, and she can try to cling to that ideologically and dogmatically and kind of not give it up, or she can wisely and maturely lay it aside in light of the new evidence and consider other possibilities, let her mind go in other directions. So if you see it in this way, that state of feeling disillusioned is not a terrible thing. It's an opportunity. It's the wise mind recognizing that you've been operating from a faulty premise, that you've been sleepwalking through your life in a world of your own fantastic construction, and now you have a chance to wake up and see the world more clearly, more accurately. So I'm going to go back to Dale Wright's book for a minute. Here's another quote that's really, really good. The most important forms of experience transform us. They show us weakness in our prior understanding of things and point in some new direction. In that sense, experience disillusions us. It divests us of the knowledge that is so dogmatically held that it stands in the way of learning. Those who are wise undergo a continual process of revision based on life experience. In this sense, wise learning is a form of suffering, something we live through at the cost of some disruption and discomfort. The counsel of wisdom, however, is not to avoid this disruption, but instead to seek out the transformative powers within it. I think a lot of people these days, especially here in America, are becoming disillusioned with our political system in a way that can also be seen as an opportunity. It seems like a lot of us have been overly confident about our security and stability as a country, assuming that the system will always run smoothly on account of this rule of law that gets talked about so much and in such glowing terms. But it's becoming more and more obvious that much of our past peace and stability as a country wasn't about law at all. Instead, it was based on norms and understandings and gentlemanly agreements and the generally good character of most of the people we put into office. So in other words, many of us have been operating under an illusion about our country. And now we have seen through the smoke and the mirrors and the sleight of hand, so we're seeing things more like as they are. Uh, our country, its political system, isn't what we thought it was. It never really has been. And that realization, that disillusionment, shows us there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity to do something about it. If we stay stuck in disillusionment, that just breeds apathy, right? That just makes us feel like there's nothing to be done. But if we view disillusionment as a stage to move through and get beyond, then it's motivating, it's empowering. It's empowering to be disillusioned if you approach it the right way, if you approach it wisely. I think the Buddha teaches the same lesson. The world you think you live in, to borrow from Willy Wonka, is a world of pure imagination, real but misconceived, misconstrued. This self you think you are is a fiction. It's a concoction. It's a temporary scaffold made from quickly expiring parts. This mind you're so enamored with, it's just a flash that exists for only this instant, and then it's never the same again. It's still there, but it's never the same again. Since it's all illusion, you should be disillusioned with all of it. Disillusioned, as Dale Wright notes, but not disheartened. Hope comes from disillusionment. Until we see through the illusion, we cannot hope because we perceive no reason to hope, no need for hope. Illusion doesn't mean unreal. Emptiness doesn't mean non-existence. I am. You are. This is. That is. All these things are, they just aren't what we think they are. This graying, wrinkly bag of mostly water, this collection of billions of cells that mostly aren't me at all, this barely contained linkage of chemical bonds, this cloud of quarks and forces and vibrating quantum strings, giving it a name and a social security number is just a convention. So be disillusioned with this, with all of this. Don't take it too seriously. But please, I beg of you, never be disheartened. As the mind releases its illusions, there's simply more room then for the heart to fill with hope. Sung Bal Hashipshio, may you, I, and all beings manifest enlightenment.